At first, a chatterbait might seem confusing, but by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to use it to catch fish. I'll show you the gear you need, how to rig it the right way, and the best places to fish it. Then I'll teach you how to fish with it step by step so you can catch as many fish as possible. So first, let's get started with the gear you need when fishing a chatterbait. Now, you don't need specialized gear to fish this, but it definitely helps. It's gonna allow you to hook more fish and get better action when ripping it through grass and stuff like that. What you can use is a 7-foot medium heavy fast action rod. That would be my ideal setup if you just wanted something that you could already have in your arsenal. If you're looking for a special chatterbait rod, something like this rod here is more what I would be looking for when I'm fishing a chatterbait. I'm a big fan of a specialty chatterbait rod. I also fish a chatterbait so much that I basically always have a chatterbait on this setup anyway, but it works for other things as well. This is a 7'1", moderate fast, medium heavy. So it's just gonna have a little bit more bend than your regular medium heavy would. So this has way more flex down into the butt of the rod, and what that's going to do is basically let this act like a crankbait rod but still have enough backbone to set the hook into fish and rip baits through grass. If you used like a regular crankbait rod like I have sitting here, this thing is so flimsy that you would never be able to get this single hook into a fish's mouth or be able to effectively rip that bait through the grass. So these rods are designed to have that backbone but still have that softer tip. Now this is the Cashin Element Z2. There are tons of chatterbait rods out there on the market. The main thing you're looking for is a medium heavy power with a moderate fast action, not a fast action. Now, like I said, your fast action rod will work. I've used it plenty of times over the years. I've caught plenty of fish on it. And sometimes, even if I'm fishing really heavy grass and I need to snap that bait through, the fast action will actually do a better job because it doesn't have as much flex to it. So sometimes I will go to that rod to get it through the grass, but all in all, this is probably the best chatterbait rod that you can get to allow you to get the best hookups and the best action. Now with the reel, I like a fast gear ratio, so I use a 7:4-to-1 gear ratio reel. You could use anything in the 7s. I always can slow myself down, so if I want my chatterbait to go slower, I can just reel slower, but you can never speed up if you're using a slower gear ratio. So sometimes what'll happen is the grass will grow up very high in the water and you have to reel it really quickly and snap really fast to get that bait to work through all of that stuff. If you have a slow gear ratio, you're gonna be fighting that all day. It's gonna take a lot of work and you're gonna struggle getting the proper action on that bait all day long, and it's going to suck to fish it that way. So I recommend the higher gear ratio reel. It just is a better option for when you're fishing these reaction baits like this. And then for the line, anything from 15 to 20 pound test is perfect. I prefer straight fluorocarbon. You could probably use monofilament if you wanted to on this. I would not use braid. The braid is going to take away the stretch the rod provides to actually get the bait into the fish's mouth. So allowing that straight fluorocarbon mixed with this rod, it is going to give you the best hookup ratio and the best land ratio out of this bait. Now, depending upon what chatterbait you're using, you can use that 15 pound. So something like this Mini Max right here, we're gonna talk about baits in just a second. I would probably use a 15, or I use 17 for this bait here. And then something like a regular jackhammer or a chatterbait Evo, those I go up to that 17 or 20 pound test. It really depends on where you're fishing, what type of cover you have, and how big the fish are that you're fishing around. For me in the Northeast, I fish around a lot of pike, a lot of heavy submerged grass, milfoil beds, stuff like that. I go with the 20 pound test when I'm fishing my jackhammers. I don't want to lose a $20 bait to a pike, so the 20 pound gives me just a little bit more abrasion resistance. Lastly, we have to talk about your chatterbaits and your trailer selection before we can go out here and get to fishing these guys. Now, there's a couple options that you can choose out there. There's more than a couple options now. Pretty much everybody has some type of a vibrating jig, but the main thing I look for is that the blade is attached to the head. There's a ton that are out there that have that option. Now, obviously, the Z-Man stuff is a good starting point. They were the ones that held the patent on the chatterbait for years, and that was that original design of having the blade attached to the head. That causes for the best vibration and the bait working immediately as soon as you start reeling it, as opposed to something with like a split ring or something else in the middle. My favorites are obviously the jackhammer. You cannot beat the jackhammer. They're very expensive, but this bait is very good. You catch a ton of fish on it. You usually don't lose too many of them as long as you're careful, and they last a very long time. So even though they're 17, 20 bucks, they're very worth it. You get your money's worth. If you do not want to spend 17 to 20 bucks, they now have the Chatterbait Evo that is very similar to the jackhammer. These are $9, $10. They're a lot more affordable. You can get 2 of these for the price of one of the jackhammers, and they have pretty similar action and qualities to them. And then if you need a downsized version, I love the Chatterbait Mini Max. This is a great option for catching smaller fish, more pressured fish. It has a subtler vibration, a smaller blade. It still has the same action as some of these bigger baits. Now, when it comes to a size that you're picking from, I only use 2. I use a 3/8 and a 1/2 ounce. And the 3/8, I use anything less than 5 foot of water. If I'm fishing less than 5 foot and I need that bait to stay high up in the water column and not get snagged on the bottom or run into all the grass, I'm going with a 3/8 ounce. That's like my #1 option for that time or that situation. Then if you're fishing a little bit deeper, up here in the Northeast, we fish chatterbait down to 5, 10, even 15 foot of water if you fish it slow enough on grass edges and stuff. That I'm gonna go with a 1/2 ounce. You might have to let it sink a little bit more, get down in the water a little bit more, but as you reel it, even if you're slow rolling it, that 1/2 ounce will stay way down in the water column and you can get more bites that way. And then the colors, I mean, there's a million different colors you can choose from. If you have shad or dirty water, a white or a white and chartreuse is amazing. The dirty water, this really stands out, the white and chartreuse. And then in that cleaner water, any type of a shad pattern, whites, clear water shad, any of that stuff works great. Then if you're fishing around bluegill eating fish, a lot of these grass bed fish that you're gonna be fishing for, especially in the Northeast, largemouth, stuff like that, or even in Florida, places like that, that's when I'm gonna go to some of these more bluegill oriented colors, and it really just depends on the water clarity. So I'll start with like a plain green pumpkin. That color always catches them. If the water gets dirty, you can go to a black and blue. And then they have other colors out there too that you can add a little pop of color depending upon what your bluegills might look like, or if they're feeding on craws or whatever. The hot craw with like the red on the belly, or the Brett's bluegill, I think it's called. It has like the orange on the belly. Bee Height Delight with some chartreuse. Any of those little pop colors can help, especially when you're fishing a field of green grass. If you're throwing an all green pumpkin bait, sometimes it's hard for them to see, but if you throw that pop color of red, orange, yellow in there, as that's ripping through the grass, they can key in on that and actually come find your bait a little bit better. Lastly, you need a trailer, and I really like to stick with straight tail trailers. I know you can use a swim bait trailer on a chatterbait. I find that I do not get the proper action out of the bait when I rig it up that way, so I like the straight tail trailers. There's quite a few out there to choose from. You can get creative with it. You can use all kinds of stuff on here. You can use stuff like the Z-Man scented jerk shads or even a fluke, but some of my favorites are going to be the Yamamoto Seiko. This gives it a ton of bulk and some weight to it. You can cast it really far because these weigh a lot, but because it's a soft plastic body, it kind of stays buoyant. And the way this tail is segmented, it vibrates perfectly in the water and kind of has like a flat side crankbait feel to your bait. They come in all the different colors, the black and blues, the green pumpkins, the whites and chartreuse that you need to pair up with your bait. The 6 Sense Aussie is another great one. This one doesn't have as many segments, just the tail wiggles a little bit, so it has a little bit subtler of an action. This one's been great on the back of a chatterbait recently. And then when I'm fishing my Mini Max, the real trailer that I like to put on there, besides the scented jerk shad, is the Busa Ned. It seems weird putting like a Ned rig trailer on the back of it, but the way that this is segmented and how straight the tail is, it has a weird little vibration to it, and the fish really love it, especially on that small profile. Put a small trailer on there, keep that really compact profile, and you catch a lot of fish. That's actually the setup that we're gonna be using down here today in the rivers. Now real quick, we'll show you how to rig one of these trailers up. Basically your chatterbait, you're just gonna tie it directly onto your line, whatever you need to get that on there, your favorite knot. And then you're just going to come to your trailer here, go straight in, feed it all the way down until it's about wherever it needs to come out to sit flat on the hook. So right there looks good to me. And I'll push it all the way up to this double keeper and over. And you can see once I kind of lock that into place, that tail is perfectly straight on there and can wiggle. It doesn't hinder any of the action of the bait. And then when you fold the skirt over, you have a nice straight bait ready to go through the water and catch some fish. So if you'd like to check out any of the gear we talked about in today's video, you can check out any of the links down below. It will help support the channel a ton to continue making videos like this for you guys. But for now, we got to show you where and how to fish this too, so you can catch the most fish. Now, when it comes to where to fish a chatterbait, there is all kinds of places that you can fish this bait. The #1 place I do not recommend fishing though is around wood. Now you can do it. If you choose the correct trailer, what will happen is instead of your bait, usually what happens with a chatterbait, if this is a piece of wood, your chatterbait hits it and it will flip over and there's no weed guard. So the hook goes into the wood and you get stuck and then you end up losing your chatterbait. If you choose the right trailer, sometimes you can get it to come up and over the wood, but more often than not, it's going to be a pain trying to fish that type of bait through wood. There's three main areas that I like. The one we have right here in front of us, big flats, gravel, rock, anything like that. It will deflect off all the rock and gravel as you're reeling it through. So right in front of us, there's actually a fish chasing bait right here. There's a big gravel bar, and you can just reel this bait nice and slow across all this gravel, and these fish will come up and grab it. It'll deflect off the gravel and everything like that. We'll show you how to fish it here in just a second. All the rocks and stuff like that, it'll deflect off of perfect. The other place is current, which we also have right here. Two currents right here. We have the main current of the river coming down this way, and we have a creek coming in this way. So there's a current break that happens right back in here. This thing works great around current. You can reel it right down those breaks. That is more of like a river specific thing, and there's a lot of baits that work in there, but you can basically fish this like a swim bait coming down the current. Anywhere you throw a swim bait and reel it down current, you can do the same thing with this chatterbait and catch a lot of fish. And the last place, I hope we're gonna find some of it today. It's starting to die off, so I don't know that we'll find any when we go out here and fish later. Grass. If you can find any type of grass, this thing works great through it. That's the #1 place to throw a chatterbait. If I had one place to throw a chatterbait, it would be grass. The way this bait is designed and this blade, when it gets into the grass, you can snap your rod and it'll break free and fly through the grass, and that's what triggers those reaction bites. Again, we'll show you how to fish that here in just a minute. But that is one of my favorite places to throw a chatterbait, as you can create reaction bites. There's usually bluegills around there and bait, and that's where the bass want to be. So I love throwing a chatterbait in the grass. You can snatch it free and get bites. I hope we find some of that later today and it's not all dead yet, so we can show you how to do that. Now let's go ahead and talk through how to fish this chatterbait to catch the most amount of fish. Now every cast is going to look the same. You're going to throw it out there as far as you can. The main thing you want to do is throw past the cover. So if you have a rocky point like here where these fish want to be, instead of me throwing it right at the rocky point like that and right where I think the fish are, I want to throw it beyond it and get the bait working properly before it ever enters the area. So I'd throw it way out there and then work it back against the point there. Now, let's go through a couple different retrieves that I like to use for throwing this chatterbait. It depends on the day. The mood of the fish will change day to day on how they actually want this bait presented. But as with any bait, you have your standard retrieve and then a couple little flares that you can add in there to catch even more fish. So your standard retrieve, you throw this thing out there. It doesn't matter if it's grass, rocks, whatever, and you just slowly wind this thing back just like this. And you'll feel the blade vibrating. And that's all you need to know. As long as that blade is vibrating, you're working the bait properly and it can get a bite. That vibration is what those fish are feeling for. Then they feel it coming, they look and see the bait coming, and that's when you're gonna get those bites. But this standard retrieve like this, you absolutely can catch fish on a chatterbait, reeling it just like this. Now, if you wanna catch even more fish, there's a few different ways that you can fish this bait to increase your odds and get more reaction bites. The #1 way that I like to do that is I throw it out there, just like I did the last one. I'll start my retrieve, and you can either do this with the rod or the reel. I sometimes like doing it with the reel. I'll flare it real quick like that, and that's what that 7 gear ratio does. Just a quick turn of the reel handle, couple like that. You can do all different kinds. It really depends on how you want to mix up the cadence. Usually I just like a regular straight retrieve and a little flare, straight retrieve, little flare, and it'll cause that bait to flutter and dart and then continue its straight retrieve, and it makes it look like a dying bait fish. It's gonna get a lot more bites that way, but you can also do it with your rod. So you can throw it out there, you can start reeling it, and as you want to mix it in, just a little snap with the rod tip like that, twitch with the rod, twitch with the rod, twitch with the rod, and it'll get that dart going, and then it continues the straight retrieve. It's another great way to get those fish fired up. The only reason I don't like usually doing it with the rod is because when you twitch it, when you stop your twitch, you're usually off the reel, so the bait will nosedive and it looks unnatural. or if a fish bites it at that given time, you're actually already setting the hook, so you're twitching the bait back, and if a fish bites it again, you gotta continue through to set the hook into the fish. Where if you do it with the reel, you're already reeling faster, you can just lean into them if they bite it and get a good hook set. Now the last thing is around the grass. That is when I actually do snap it free, but what you would do, I don't have grass right in front of me right here, but say I'd be reeling this. If that blade stops vibrating because it's in the grass, snap it 2 times like that and keep reeling. Double snap, keep reeling, and when you do that double snap, that's gonna break free from the grass, flutter out, and then pause for a second, and that's when those fish are gonna smash that bait. That's when you're gonna get a lot of your bites fishing around the grass, and hopefully we find some of it later today so that we can actually catch some fish in the grass and show you how to do that. But overall, you want your chatterbait acting erratic, you want it doing crazy things, and that's gonna be how you get the most amount of bites. The other thing is when you have this bait out here and you're reeling it, the biggest thing to note is if your blade stops vibrating for any reason, set the hook. If you do that every single time, you're going to catch way more fish if you just set the hook if your blade stops vibrating. Not like really hard, but just give it a twitch. And if you give it a twitch and it starts vibrating again, it was in grass or stuck on something because the blade stopped vibrating. When it does that and you set the hook, you're gonna create that reaction bite potentially, and that's gonna get you more bites. Or if the blade stopped vibrating, it's because a fish ate it and you're gonna set the hook and land that fish. So that's the #1 thing to pay attention to. If the blade stops vibrating, set the hook. So now let's go put all these tips together and see if we can catch some fish on chatterbait. And before we get to fishing with the bait, if you could head down below and hit the subscribe button. Only 14% of you that watch the channel are actually subscribed, and I'm trying to reach that 100,000 subscriber mark, so if you could help me out with that goal, that would be greatly appreciated. But for now, let's show you where and how to fish this bait to catch the most fish. So now that we got our chatterbait all rigged up and ready to go, let's go ahead and do some fishing with it and see if we can catch some bass down here in the Pittsburgh River. It's been a brutally tough day on some of the other videos I've filmed. Hopefully the chatterbait's gonna turn it around, but it's probably gonna be equally as tough. We are in the fall transition right now, which makes for great chatterbait fishing, and it's one of the best baits because these fish want to chase bait around. But I think the water just needs to be a little bit colder. We're still up in the 73, 74 range, but we found this bank right here. It has a little bit of a mix of everything, which I think is gonna be cool to show you how this chatterbait can work through literally all this cover. It's just a fantastic bait to work through pretty much all types of cover. We have lay down wood, we have grass, there's bait everywhere, we have some rock up here. There's just a little mix of everything that these fish could be on. And all I'm gonna do is kind of slow roll this chatterbait around this cover. And if I get it stuck in any grass or anything like that, I'll try and flare it and see if we can get one to bite. Most likely we're gonna need to trigger a reaction bite with how tough the fishing is right now. I don't think the fish are just gonna come right out and start chasing this thing around and destroying it, but we'll see. But like right there, I got stuck in a little bit of some leaves and some grass. I gave it a little twitch and you can feel the blade stop. And then as soon as you twitch it, it starts again and starts vibrating. That's exactly what you're looking for with these fish. And this bait in general, that'll get those fish fired up and wanting to bite this. So let's work our way down through this bank, see if there's any hungry, aggressive smallmouth that want a chatterbait today. There we go, got one. Uh-oh, I'm in my 360. Come here, fish. Got him. But we finally got us one on the chatterbait. We actually slid out to the bridge pilings here. There's tons of bait out here, and even though they're suspended, you can still work that bait and flutter it and flare it and get those fish to come bite it and make it look like an injured bait fish underneath all this other bait out here. And overall, the chatterbait just catches a ton of fish no matter where you fish it. But if you want to see another bait that catches even more fish that you can pair with it in the same areas, check this video out right here. Hit the subscribe button down below, and thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.